Welcome to this explainer. Have you ever scrolled through your feed, stopped on a beautifully designed new skincare line, or maybe a really sleek kitchen gadget, and thought, how did they launch this so fast without actually owning a factory? Well, the secret is usually the private label model. So let's unpack the blueprint of exactly how these modern digital-first brands are built totally from scratch.
Okay, here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll decode what private label brands actually are. Second, we'll walk through the brand building blueprint. Third, we'll get into operations and scaling up. Fourth, we'll look at the money model. And fifth, the final verdict. Let's just jump right in.
Section 1. Decoding private label brands.
So at its core, the separation of duties here is honestly fascinating. In a private label business, you aren't running a factory, you're running a brand. A third-party manufacturer focuses entirely on making the goods at scale, whether that's shampoo, daily supplements, or tech accessories. You, on the other hand, step in to control the positioning and the whole customer relationship. You sell the product under your own name and logo as if it were entirely your own creation. And the best part? You do it without ever needing to drop millions of dollars on heavy production equipment.
Now, people mix this up with white labeling all the time. Think of white label products as generic, off-the-shelf goods. It's like a completely plain, standard bottle that anyone can just slap a logo on. Literally 10 different sellers could be selling the exact same white label item. But private labeling brings in this vital element of exclusive customization. It is uniquely tailored and sold exclusively under your specific brand, which gives you a major, distinct edge in the market.
And this also makes it completely distinct from dropshipping. Dropshipping is purely a fulfillment model where you rarely hold any inventory and the supplier ships directly to the customer. Private labeling, though, is fundamentally about owning the brand and the product identity. Now, usually you hold your own inventory in a private label model, but you actually can combine the two into private label dropshipping. That's where a supplier holds and ships your customized, branded products. But the core focus? That always remains the same. You own the brand.
Moving on to Section 2. The brand building blueprint.
This four-step phase is what takes you from just having an abstract idea to holding a physical item. Step 1 is finding a niche with stable demand, decent margins, and actual room to improve an existing product. Step 2 gets very real. You have to carefully vet manufacturers, request a bunch of samples, and negotiate your minimum order quantities. Then, in Step 3, you customize the product and its packaging so it really stands out. And finally, Step 4 is where you build out your brand identity, establishing that visual style and core messaging that truly connects with your buyers.
Honestly, that customization step is essentially your protective moat against competitors. You aren't just copying an off-the-shelf item here. You're actively deciding on the bottle types, the specific labels, the unique formulations, or the premium materials that make this product undeniably yours. If you're selling a cosmetic or maybe a food item, you are choosing the exact fragrances and flavors. This deliberate tailoring is exactly what elevates your product way above generic alternatives.
And that reads perfectly to this point. Strong branding turns an everyday item into something people recognize, remember, and are willing to pay more for. I absolutely love this because it is the core secret of the whole model. Whether you're positioning your product as a high-end luxury item, a natural eco-friendly alternative, or a highly professional tool, your brand story creates perceived value. It's literally the only reason a customer will confidently choose your protein shaker over a cheaper, unbranded one sitting right next to it.
All right, Section 3. Operations and scaling up.
So now we shift from the fun, creative phase to the hard operational reality. In Step 5, you transition from approving tiny little samples to placing heavy, bulk orders. You have to figure out if you're using a warehouse, a third-party logistics provider, or maybe fulfillment by Amazon. Step 6 is deciding exactly where your virtual storefront is going to live. And then Step 7 is the big one. You finally push the product live to the world, market your creation, aggressively differentiate it from all the noise, and start scaling up your operations.
Looking at your sales channels, you've definitely got a few options. Now, while a lot of founders leverage the massive built-in traffic of marketplaces like Amazon initially, the long-term goal for a really resilient brand is almost always to build your own direct-to-consumer or D2C website. Why? Well, because when you sell on your own site, you capture much better margins. Plus, and this is absolutely crucial, you own your customer data. That allows you to remarket to them directly without paying some middleman.
You have to remember, the factory makes the physical item, but you create the value. Scaling up means building deep trust through positive reviews, creating really engaging email flows, and setting up influencer collaborations. As you grow, you can start adding more products under your brand umbrella, This bumps up your average order value and your customer lifetime value, making sure you don't have to start from scratch every single time you want to grow your revenue.
Okay, let's talk numbers in Section 4, the money model.
When a customer pays your selling price, you need to look at how that pie actually gets carved up. First, it has to cover your cost of goods sold, or COGS. That is the manufacturing, packaging, freights, and import duties. Then, it has to cover direct selling fees, like whatever commission a marketplace might take just for using their platform. Only after those pretty massive slices are taken out do you finally arrive at your gross profit. But here's the reality check. Gross profit isn't what actually goes into your pocket. Out of that gross margin, you still have to deduct your marketing spend, your software tools, your staff, and your daily overheads. What is finally left over is your ultimate net profit. And this is the number you must fiercely protect. Because you control the branding, you can charge a premium. That is exactly how you ensure this net profit number stays healthy even after the factory and the platforms take their cuts.
Finally, Section 5, the final verdict. At the end of the day, it's a balancing act. On the advantage side, you have incredible control over the customer experience. You get way better margins than simple reselling, and, most importantly, you are building a real sellable brand asset. But, the disadvantages carry serious weight. You absolutely must be prepared for the upfront capital required for minimum order quantities. You're going to face complex logistics, longer lead times, and you bear the heavy responsibility of quality control, legal compliance, and customer returns.
So if you can execute this blueprint, manage the supply chain, and completely obsess over your customer's experience, the upside is truly monumental. But it leaves you with one critical question to think about before you start. Are you ready to put in the grueling work required to build a brand people actually love and remember? Or are you just looking to flip products anonymously? Think about it. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer.